Imagine eating a salad, and someone telling you, technically those leaves already contain tiny amounts of muscle, bone, and hair. That sounds less like philosophy and more like somebody trying way too hard to explain protein. But an ancient Greek philosopher named Anaxagoras genuinely believed something close to this. According to him, everything in the universe contains a portion of everything else, which means your body, your food, the air, the stars, are all mixtures of the same tiny ingredients. Honestly, this man basically looked at reality and said, everything is inside everything. By the time Anaxagoras arrived, Greek philosophy had become deeply confusing. One philosopher said, everything changes. Another said, nothing changes. Another tried to prove motion itself was impossible. At this point, ancient Greece was basically hosting the world's first intellectual boss battle, and Anaxagoras stepped in with a new idea. He agreed with Parmenides that nothing can come from nothing, but he also believed diversity and change are obviously real. Cats exist, trees exist, soup exists for reasons nobody fully understands. So how can the universe stay eternal, while still producing endless different things? Anaxagoras answered with one of the strangest theories in ancient philosophy. Everything contains tiny portions of everything else. According to Anaxagoras, the universe originally began as one giant mixture, a massive cosmic blend where every substance existed together in a single unified mass. Nothing was separated yet. No mountains, no oceans, no animals, no TikTok comments, just infinitely tiny particles mixed together. Anaxagoras called these particles seeds, and these seeds were eternal and indestructible. They could never truly disappear. Now here's the weird part. Every object contains all kinds of seeds, not just one type. A tree contains tiny amounts of everything else. A rock contains tiny amounts of everything else. You contain tiny amounts of literally everything. The reason objects look different is simply because certain seeds dominate the mixture. For example, a wooden table contains all kinds of seeds, but wood seeds are the most dominant. Honestly, this theory sounds bizarre at first, but it was Anaxagoras' attempt to solve a serious philosophical problem. How can new things appear if nothing can come from nothing? Now here comes my favorite part of Anaxagoras' philosophy, the goat. Anaxagoras noticed something strange. A goat eats leaves, but leaves don't look anything like fur, muscle, bone, and yet somehow, the goat's body keeps producing fur, muscle, and bone from those leaves, which raised a big question. How does something become part of an animal if it doesn't already resemble the animal? Anaxagoras' answer was surprisingly creative. He said the leaves already contain tiny portions of fur, muscle, bone. They're just invisible and extremely small. So when the goat eats leaves, it's actually collecting microscopic amounts of the materials it needs. Honestly, this is ancient philosophy trying very hard to explain nutrition. But weirdly enough, there's a tiny glimpse of something scientific here. Because modern biology does involve hidden structures, microscopic components, transformation of matter. Anaxagoras obviously didn't know about cells or molecules, but he understood something important. Things may contain hidden ingredients we cannot directly see. Now here's where things become cosmic. Anaxagoras believed the original universal mixture didn't organize itself randomly. Something had to start the process. He called this force Nous, pronounced roughly like noose. Though honestly, it sounds cooler if you say it dramatically. Nous means mind, reason, intelligence, the cosmic mind. According to Anaxagoras, Nous initiated motion in the universe. It caused the original mass to start spinning. And as this giant cosmic whirlpool rotated, different substances gradually separated and organized themselves. Heavy things moved one way, light things moved another way. Over time, stars formed, planets formed, living things formed. The universe became structured, and importantly, Nous wasn't just a starter motor, it also guided order itself. So unlike random chaos, the cosmos had intelligence behind it. This is one reason later philosophers found Anaxagoras so fascinating. He introduced the idea that mind might be a fundamental force in reality. Now Anaxagoras had another extremely strange idea. He believed matter is infinitely divisible, meaning you can cut something in half forever, and no matter how small the pieces become, they still contain the same mixture. Imagine cutting an apple in half, then cutting the halves again, and again, and again. According to Anaxagoras, every tiny piece still contains the same basic nature as the original apple. Even microscopic fragments contain portions of all substances. This idea was important because it supported his belief that everything contains everything else. No matter how small the piece becomes, the hidden ingredients remain there. Honestly, ancient Greek philosophers really loved taking normal situations and pushing them into terrifying infinity scenarios. First, Zeno, you can never finish walking. Now Anaxagoras, you can cut fruit forever. Now obviously modern science does not believe in bone seeds hiding in lettuce. Probably. But Anaxagoras was still doing something incredibly important. He was trying to explain the universe using natural processes, hidden structures, logical systems instead of myths about gods throwing lightning bolts around. That shift matters a lot. And some of his ideas feel surprisingly modern. For example, matter being made from tiny invisible components? Very scientific direction. The universe beginning from one unified state? Also surprisingly modern sounding. Hidden structures beneath appearances? Again, huge philosophical idea. Anaxagoras was basically trying to understand reality beneath the surface level, and that mindset deeply influenced later thinkers like Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. In fact, Anaxagoras helped bring philosophy itself to Athens, which later became the intellectual center of ancient Greece. So even if his theories sound strange today, his influence was enormous. Now here's something interesting. Anaxagoras eventually got into trouble for his ideas, because some of his explanations challenged traditional religious beliefs. Instead of saying celestial objects were divine beings, he tried explaining them naturally. And ancient societies weren't always thrilled when philosophers started saying, actually, maybe the universe works through physical processes instead. At some point, Anaxagoras reportedly had to leave Athens for his own safety, which is honestly a recurring pattern in philosophy history. Think differently for long enough, and eventually somebody gets uncomfortable. But this also shows how radical these thinkers really were. They weren't just inventing weird theories for entertainment. They were changing how humans understood reality itself. What makes Anaxagoras fascinating isn't whether he was scientifically correct. He obviously wasn't. But his way of thinking was incredibly imaginative. He looked at the world and asked, how can different things emerge from the same universe? How does order arise from chaos? How can hidden structures produce visible reality? Those are still huge questions today. Modern science also searches for fundamental building blocks, hidden structures, unifying principles, just with much better equipment than goat observations. And honestly, there's something oddly poetic about Anaxagoras' idea that everything contains part of everything else. Because in a way, modern reality does work through interconnected systems. Stars produce the elements in your body. Plants become animals. Animals become soil. Soil becomes plants again. The universe is deeply interconnected. Anaxagoras just imagined that interconnectedness in an extremely literal way. So here's the core of Anaxagoras' philosophy. The universe began as one unified mixture. Everything contains tiny portions of everything else. Nothing is truly created or destroyed, only rearranged. And behind the order of the cosmos lies Nous, the cosmic mind that set everything into motion. Now sure, his theories may sound bizarre today, but they represent something important. A moment when humans began trying to explain reality through reason, patterns, and hidden structures instead of pure mythology. And honestly, that curiosity, or the urge to look deeper beneath appearances, might be one of the most powerful forces in human history. Subscribe for more interesting philosophical stories. Thank you.